Hey everybody, it's Brandon Hartness here, real estate agent in the foothills of Western North Carolina. And today I'm going to do a quick video just talking some about the 1% rule and the 50% rule when it comes to real estate investing. So whether you're thinking of selling your rental property or investment property, or maybe thinking of investing in property yourself, this is a common question that we get asked about, kind of what is the 50% rule and the 1% rule. We talk about it a lot. So we're just kind of going to go over some of the big things with these rules, kind of why they're important, why people pay attention to them, maybe some drawbacks or some shortcomings of those rules, and definitely hope you're able to find something that's useful to you here. Before we get started, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button below so you never miss another video from me. And as always, please feel free to reach out to me anytime if I can answer any questions or just to talk. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is the 1% rule in real estate and why is it important? The 1% rule of real estate investing basically measures the price of an investment property against the gross income it will generate. So for a potential investment to pass the 1% rule, its monthly rent must be equal to no less than 1% of the purchase price. Okay, so an easy way to think about this is if you're buying a property for, say, $100,000, an investment property, rental property, whatever it may be, you need to bring in about $1,000 a month there in order to pass the 1% rule. So this is something that you can use to kind of quickly gauge cash flow for the property or the potential cash flow for the property. And if the property is unoccupied, you can also use the rule to help set the monthly rental rate that you're looking to charge. So the thing I'd say about the 1% rule is it's a very, very basic starting point. A lot of people aren't necessarily going to make a purchase decision based on the 1% rule. But if you do have rental property or investment property you're thinking of selling or you're looking yourself, it's a good thing to be aware of because a lot of investors are looking at this. This is kind of like a snapshot when they look at a property. We get a lot of people come to us and say, what should I pay for this if I can get this much rent? Or if I'm renting this for this amount, what should I sell it for? And so the 1% rule is kind of a good place to start. It's just a rule of thumb. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. And a lot of times, with the 1% rule, we're looking at smaller rental portfolios. So this is not going to really be a rule that's applicable to 500 units, 1,000 units. We're talking about like a single family home, maybe a single wide or a double wide or a duplex, triplex, quadplex, some kind of small rental property is where people are usually looking at this 1% rule. But it's very good to be aware of it and kind of be aware of what people are looking at. And it's a great starting point for assessing the potential profitability of a property. And so a lot of times the 1% rule, what investors and buyers are doing is they're just using it to kind of narrow down, their prospects. So if we're in the market for a rental property and we see one, say $200,000 that's bringing in $1,000 a month versus one that's $200,000 that's maybe bringing in $1,900 or $2,100 a month, a lot of investors are going to naturally gravitate toward that rental rate that's closer to 1% of the purchase price because there's a higher potential that that property will be profitable over time. Okay, so the second one we're going to talk about today is the 50% rule. This one's similar to the 1% rule in that I would say it's just a gauge. It's just a general guideline to kind of get someone started in analyzing a rental property. A lot of times what investors and buyers are doing with these, they're using them as filters. So they'll come in, look at a property that's for sale, kind of run these rough numbers, the 1%, the 50%, and just kind of decide which properties they should maybe pursue further and which ones probably will not be profitable for them. So the 50% rule in general, it's a guideline used by real estate investors to estimate the profitability of a given rental unit. And basically this can be derived by taking the rental income of the unit and dividing it in half, and then taking that number and applying it as your expenses. So 50% of the gross rent that you're bringing in, we're going to assume is going out to expenses. So these potential expenses include repair costs, taxes, property management fees, utility costs, insurance costs, and anything else really besides the mortgage payment. So we're going to leave the mortgage payment out for now. So the 50% rule matters. It allows you to move quickly through rental properties if you're an investor analyzing a potential purchase. And if you operate in a fast-moving, very competitive market like we do often with rental properties, especially today, the 50% rule can really help people kind of eliminate those properties that may be a little less desirable. So just one example of the 50% rule, let's say that you're looking at a single-family home in your market with an estimated rental income, say $3,000. So following the 50% rule, we would say that approximately $1,500 of that will be used for property expenses. This will leave you with another $1,500 to evaluate whether the property is a good investment or not. So let's say that we have our mortgage is going to be around $1,200 on the property. So We have $3,000 in gross rent. We take half of that away for expenses. Okay, and then we take $1,200 away for our mortgage. So we're going to be left with around $300 a month in profit, cash flow. Okay, so if we do $300 a month times 12, we can get a yearly cash flow, say $3,600. And then we can look at our down payment and the money that we had to invest into the property. And we can actually get a cash on cash return, which is something we'll do in a different video later. But what I'm showing you is how the 50% rule can actually help you get to those cash on cash return numbers and a lot of these big numbers that investors are looking at. So that's why it's really a big starting point for a lot of people, the 50% rule. Now, many investors do find that the 50% rule actually overestimates the expenses associated with a property. The reason is that not all homes have the same property taxes, HOA fees, maintenance requirements. In reality, these costs may not total up to half of the overall rent that you're bringing in, which should come as a good surprise. So in reality, a lot of times these costs will not actually add up to quite 50% of the rent, which is a good surprise for investors, when they actually do buy the property. So they kind of like to overestimate this to begin with. And especially with things like manufactured homes, single wides, double wides, a lot of times we see that number of repair, maintenance, expense cost actually does approach 50%. So it's kind of a good baseline just to plan worst case scenario on the 50%. Okay, so that's just a little bit about the 1% rule and the 50% rule. We will go over all this stuff in much more detail in other videos. And of course, we'll talk about other things when it comes to commercial real estate and rental property, such as cap rates, net operating income, all that kind of stuff. But these are really for our small rental portfolios and small investors. And the 1% rule is kind of going to be the very first thing that people look at. They see a property listed for $250,000. They're thinking, can I get $2,500 a month out of this? If that's possible, they may go through and kind of do the 50% rule, look at the rent, break it down, see what the expenses could be estimated for that property, kind of get an idea of what the mortgage would be. And eventually, as we'll talk about in further videos, you can derive a cash on cash return, just like if we were investing in the stock market, we want to know what our return on our money is. We can do that in real estate as well. And so these are two really big rules that people are kind of starting with. So whether you're thinking of selling rental property or you're thinking of investing in property yourself, these can be really useful indexes and gauges to kind of see where a property is at, to kind of help you filter properties and pick out those that have the best potential of being profitable for you. And if you're thinking of selling property, obviously you can market to those potential buyers and investors and go ahead and do some of the work for them to have a better chance of making sure that your property is on the list of properties they decide to look at and consider making an offer on. So I hope this video was useful for you. If you have any questions at all, I would love to talk more about the 1%, the 50% rule, anything else when it comes to real estate investing. Please hit the subscribe button below so you never miss another video from me. And please feel free to reach out to me anytime if I can help you at all. You can call, text, email, find me online, or message me on social media, however is best for you. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.